The Holler Kings, where the horror's southern fried.
On every episode of the Holler Kings, we like to do a segment called Holler at Your Boys.
Holler at your boys, y'all.
Oh, it's true.
Ooh-wee.
It's true, and this is Open Topic. And Adam, you brought one hell of a topic today.
Oh,
Tell us.
get ready, baby, because it's gonna be a scream. I figured we could rank the Scream movies.
It's so bad that like I'm your only audience that's live because you're never gonna get a reaction out of me. Like he just like really laid it out there, did like the hand movements, the whole thing. That's another. You had mentioned maybe trying to do like a streaming version of this.
Oh,
where
yeah.
It's like the cameras.
Yeah.
That's a case for that. Because
absolutely.
at least someone would have maybe seen it and gone, oh,
So
yeah.
people in the comments can go, "You're a fucking idiot."
Craig, why didn't you react to that? So, yes, we're going to rank all,
The Scream movies.
and it's 6 films at this point.
Yep. We got 4 to choose from, and then 2 whatever the fucks.
This may or may not be spurned on by the fact that the latest installment is now
Yes.
streaming, and we both caught it.
Yeah.
So we're up to speed. Adam?
Yes,
Do you briefly explain the rules of how we do these lists.
Basically, we go from worst to best, and basically the way we usually do it is, as we go through, if one of ours are further down the list, we kind of, I guess with this we could do it a little bit differently since we're doing the same movies. We could kind of just free flow, kind of talk about them as they go, since. You know what I mean?
But we'll probably sync up quite a bit too, I imagine.
I have a feeling. There might be 1 or 2 we're off on, but I think for the most part, we're going to be pretty similar. And we're not including the TV show on this because I don't think you've seen it, have you?
No.
Yeah, so which basically would be best is season 2, season 1, and then season 3 is garbage. Anyways, okay, now moving on. So
Hot
what
take.
would your worst one be?
My worst one
Yes.
would be called Scream.
Ah, yep. I agree.
But the 5th one
Yeah.
that they inexplicably
2022.
just called Scream because they're buttholes.
Yep.
Wait, 2022? That was just last year?
Yeah.
Oh, God. I feel like it was a billion years ago.
Now, how many times have you watched? Well, I'll go ahead and say it. That's my worst one too.
Okay.
So, have you only watched it the one time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I rewatched it this year.
Why? Why'd you do that to yourself?
Because I was like, maybe I'm wrong. Everybody seems to love this movie.
It has a lot of goodwill.
Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I don't feel like I'm wrong. It's just not a good. I don't want to shit on the radio silence guys. They kind of fucked you like really hard with it because they made their aggressors and the bad guys us.
Sure.
People who are critiquing them. So you can't really critique it without someone going, "Oh, you're just like Amber and fucking what was his name? Richie." And it's like, spoiler alerts if you haven't seen the movie, but I feel like we should spoil it because it's not worth watching. But so it's hard to critique. Anyways, I don't want to shit on Radio Silence. I like those guys. They seem, every interview I've seen with them, they seem like really genuine good dudes, and I still absolutely love Ready or Not. But this, I mean, it's just I don't understand it. It's not a good movie.
We talked in great detail
Yeah,
about
go
this
back
film,
if you want to hear me cry like a little bitch.
because we were pretty upset with some of the creative decisions.
Yeah.
And
Which, when I rewatched it this time, I skipped the Dewey shit. I didn't
Did you
watch
really?
it. I didn't watch it. I refuse.
I mean, they do the classic thing of a legacy sequel.
Classic or cliched?
Well, yeah, the trope.
Yeah.
The trope of a legacy sequel is to bring back the old characters to only be in service of the new characters. Like,
Yeah.
you don't really need the old characters, but they are there to kind of like prop up these new kids.
If they were not in this movie, there would be nothing lost to the story.
Just a kill
at
count
all.
in some cases.
Yeah, at all. They are not necessary in the very least. The only good thing I can say about them being in it is it's cool to see Sydney shooting through doors and shit, and then like saying I'm bored and hanging up on the killer. Other than that, there's absolutely no reason for them to be in it.
Well, and in fairness to the filmmakers, I thought it was very sacrilegious to even do this without Wes Craven. I know you probably I mean, you watched the show and stuff, but at least
Wes was still around and was an
kinda
executive producer on it.
Like, and I get that this is the film business and IP is king. Like, I totally understand that. So I don't mean to be too like watching it with my arms crossed, but I just don't like the idea of them carrying on without Wes Craven, especially when Part 4 was so good. I would understand. I'm kind of showing my hand here. I would understand if like the last installment of Scream just was horrible. If they like really did not stick the landing, I could understand being more of an urge to make another one. And I concede too how each Scream kind of has commentary on where horror is in the moment.
Yeah.
So I get the kind of impulse to be like, we need a new one.
We'll get to that.
Right.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, they kind of by playing with those tropes, they just made another bad belated sequel to me.
Scream 22 is just a bad remake of Scream 4. I mean, Scream 4 did the exact same thing. Brought back the legacy characters, brought in new characters, and commented on remakes. Now, Scream 4 is a requel.
Right.
And Scream 22, all they did was redo that, except badly, in my opinion.
Well, and I don't... There's a lot of love and goodwill for these new characters. If you look online and stuff like that, people love them.
It.
Yeah. And I have to... Again, we have to concede as older... Especially me, as an older fan... Like, they're not making these movies for us. If we like it, great. But they're making it for 12-year-olds. You know what I mean? They're making it for 12, 13-year-olds. You know, the age that we were when the original Screams came out.
Yeah.
I was a little bit older than that, sadly. But you know what I mean? Like, young teenagers.
Yeah, young teen to, like, maybe early 20s.
Right.
That's what this is made for.
Yeah. And, like... and those people seem to really resonate with it because the legacy characters don't mean as much to them, I'm assuming. But I just don't feel like, especially in this original, the Scream 2022, that they gave us enough meat for these new characters to really latch on to them and resonate with anyone in particular. Like, I'm just thinking about the alchemy of Deputy Dewey and Gail Weathers, right? Being like this really strong, like, Lois Lane style reporter and this like goofy doofus deputy kind of like having this link and this chemistry with each other and that dynamic playing on each other. Like, they don't have anything in the realm of that, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like, there's no characters that really, like, in this first one, this 2022, that really have any kind of real interpersonal play. They just kind of like parrot stuff and kind of imitate characters that we've seen before, but there's no like emotional connection between these characters, I feel like, or something special that gives you that spark.
Yeah.
For me, but obviously a lot of people really disagree. I just feel like, again, a lot of people dislike Jenna Ortega because she has a natural charisma and, a lot of talent and everything. But I kind of question how much that character really brings to anything, and especially in that first one. Like,
yeah. It's just maybe because they have so many characters that they couldn't write any one of them with any substance. From the new characters to the legacy characters to the side characters, no one's given any meat whatsoever.
That's fair.
The only meat they try to give, really, they do it badly with Dewey and Gale. Like, they completely just make Dewey a shell of his former self and nothing like what his character would ever be. Even Gale, they poorly write Gale. Gale, this, spunky go-getter, just like, cutthroat to the bone journalist that just really wants to get the story, is hosting a fucking morning talk show, doing cooking segments and shit.
Well, that's
never.
I feel like that's become such a trope now too. It's kind of like you bring back the old characters to kind of devalue them.
Yeah, and they've all kind of failed.
Right. And I get it on some level, because you can't just have them show back up and be superheroes and just save the day. Like, I understand that.
Well, I mean, that's my biggest complaint with it. They should have never...
Yeah.
Those characters should have been left with Wes. When Wes passed away, those characters were done with. I feel like that would have been... As much as you can write for Wes on a movie, for Wes would have been to leave those characters where he left them. In a good place.
They had a really good ending.
Yeah.
But, you know, it was probably a studio mandate
Probably.
for them to have those characters.
Especially in this age of the requel.
Right. So in fairness to the filmmakers, they had to spin a lot of plates. And,
Right.
and like you said, though, it suffered because of that, because they couldn't quite give us enough meat for anyone, really.
Yeah.
I mean, even the main protagonist, you know, being a legacy character and the daughter of, you know, a serial killer and stuff, they try to play around with that, but I just felt like it fell very flat.
I mean, even it's just cliched and underwritten.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is, like, I'm going to hazard a guess and say your next choice is the latest Scream.
Oh,
right? So
yes, sir. Should we just move into it and kind of go with it?
So
okay.
Scream...
But I'm guessing yours is the same.
Yes.
Okay.
It's number 5.
Yeah.
Or the second to worst is Scream 6.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people call it.
Right.
I'll only ever call it Scream 2023. But yes, yeah.
Like, they try to carry on this idea that our protagonist, our new Sydney, is she's struggling with this idea that she might be a killer. Mm-hmm. But, like, they don't play around with it enough. Like, I never once think she might kill someone that's
slightest.
innocent. Like, if they had given us, you know, these movies are whodunits, right? And that's part of the fun. If they had somehow cleverly made us think, could she be one of the killers and she doesn't realize it? Like, if they had kind of played with that, especially in this movie, the most recent one,
Yeah.
that would give me something new to kind of hook onto and go, okay, they have a new idea and they're playing with it. But instead, it's just a really lazy reason to have a legacy character pop up every now and then.
For sure.
And to remind us, like, oh, there's some linkage between these new characters. Like, they're all related to the old characters. And it's like, that's so lazy. Like,
Before just so we aren't just don't feel too old man gatekeepy-ish, is there anything you did like from Scream 2022?
I thought it was cool that they tried to mirror part 2 a little bit. You know, the characters are going off to college.
No, I'm talking about Scream 2022. Before we move on from that movie and get into nothing.
It was a totally serviceable, forgettable slasher movie.
Yeah.
You know, I don't feel like any of the new characters I latched onto in any way, shape, or form, even though I like the actors, by the way.
Uh-huh.
I have no problem with any of the actors. I think they're all perfectly good actors, and I've seen some of them in other things and liked them.
Right.
But I don't feel like the script had anything to bring to me where I was like into it.
I would say the stuff I said with like Sydney hanging up on the killer saying she was bored, shooting in the doors. I really like that. I really like that they brought Martha Meeks back. That was cool. Even if it's only for one little scene. I mean, she was only in one little scene in part 3. So I like that they brought her back. I thought they did too much with like bringing, you know, trying to reference the old ones. But I did like that they brought her back. I like Jack, what's his name? Jack Quaid?
Yeah.
I like him as Richie. I think he's a funny dude in most everything he's in. And the girl that plays Amber, like when she's finally revealed to be the killer, I think she goes pretty batshit in a really fun way. Mm-hmm. Other than that, okay, we'll get back to the new one. Anyways.
Well, I mean, what they did to Dewey kind of just any goodwill I had soured
anything.
it. So those are all fair points, by the way. I pretty well agree with you. So, yeah.
But yeah, on to the next one. How do you have the audacity to kill off a legacy character, but then can't kill off anybody in your next movie? Not a one. There's no risk. There's no aversion whatsoever. There's not a moment in this movie where you, even when there is a moment of threat, it's immediately sidestep and it's like, psych, everything's fine. There is nothing. There's no substance in this movie whatsoever as far as, you go back to what anybody says defending Scream 2022, they say, oh, you got to do something like kill off Dewey because it's the only way to show that, that there's a real threat. There's nothing even slightly in this movie to show that there's a real threat. Nobody dies in this movie. Nobody. The only people that, again, we're going to get to the spoilers, so if you haven't seen the new one yet, it's streaming on Paramount Plus. Don't go rent it. Nobody dies.
Yeah.
Literally, the only people that die are side characters,
or even just nameless bystanders. In
literally,
some cases.
quite literally.
Yeah.
Nobody dies in this movie. It's insane.
Yeah.
I was overall. Okay, I'll say this: from the start, they lost me immediately. When you have Samara Weaving, you're going to tell me someone as gorgeous as Samara Weaving is so desperate for a date that she'll run into a alleyway in the middle of the night? No, you lost me at that point. I was like, there's no way. I wouldn't do it, and I look like a chud. You're going to tell me Samara Weaving is going to do that? No, there's absolutely no way that's happening.
Well, it's so funny that you bring up, I almost forgot about the opening kill.
Yeah.
Because I kind of dug the opening kill, and I'll tell you why. I'll do my track.
Okay, you go
ahead. Spoiler, once again, the opening kill, we have, a pretty prominent, recognizable person gets killed as per tradition, and the ghost face takes off his mask, and it's you see also another recognizable actor playing the ghost faced, and I was like, this is going to be like Columbo. Like, they're going to tell us who the killer is in the beginning, and we get to play around with the idea of, like, other people figuring it out. This is, like, super unique. They're going to go at this at a totally new level, and I love this. Like, I was won over immediately, just thinking they're doing something innovative with this tired concept, and then they throw it all out the window.
That's what I was going to say. They lost me at Samara Weaving being drop dead gorgeous and running into an alley. Then they won me back when they had the killer remove the mask, and I was like, I've always thought this would be a good idea for one of the Screams, and I was like, they're going to do it. We know who the killer is from the start, and we get to see a movie from their perspective.
Yeah.
And how would they go about that? How did they make their moves? How did they keep from getting caught? All this, and then they lost me again by immediately killing them off. But then they kind of won me over again whenever Roger Jackson says, "Who gives a fuck about movies?" I was like, that was a good line. That was a good line.
And in fairness, at least they played around with the opening sequence. They had a new type of death.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So
it wasn't the worst cold open.
Sure.
I guess Scream 22 was the worst cold open because the character didn't even fucking die. But yeah, it definitely wasn't the worst cold open. It was really cool, but they had a really good idea that they immediately scrapped.
Yeah.
And just went back into the same old, same old. Now, I will say, and I'm sorry, I get it, that in real life, guns are terrifying. You got a gun pointed at you, that's terrifying. Ghostface holding a gun, not scary. It looks stupid. So when he's in the bodega wielding a shotgun, it just looks dumb. I get that these characters, once they demask, they always have guns, but when you got the ghost face mask on, there's an unwritten rule you're not running around with a gun.
Well, I think they're trying really hard to
make something good.
Well, burn their own path. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Blaze their own path rather. And I feel like they're just kind of stumbling around because there's just not that much to do. I mean, like.
They could kill somebody.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a huge problem. Is I think they want all these characters to be new versions of old characters instead of just making original characters, and doing something original with them. I mean, because we for all purposes, the only new character at this point is the Jenna Ortega character, being like a younger sister that seems to be vulnerable. Like, I kind of like that dynamic a little bit. That's why this one was elevated above the other one.
While we were talking about it in 22, I really did like the Sam and Tara characters in this. I really like Sam in the other one was just kind of just whatever. Like, I didn't think she was bad, but I didn't think she was anything amazing. I really liked her in this one. I mean, I'm glad they waited so long to do it, because the daughter of a serial killer and Billy, you know, seeing visions of Billy Loomis is cheesy and dumb.
Yeah.
It was entertaining enough in 22. I wish they didn't carry it over in this one. But then again, if they hadn't, I'd been like, wait, what happened to that? So I guess they were damned either way. I still don't like that stuff, but her overall, I really like her character arc in this. There's a really cool scene where she reacted how where someone throws a drink on her, and you're just like, oh, don't be like, oh, what? But she's like, fuck you, bitch, I'll kill you. I was like, oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah, Sam. Yeah, I really like those characters in this one compared to the first one, where I feel like they were given nothing.
Well, see, and I like the actors. Again, I don't want to seem like I'm coming across like I don't like these actors.
Oh, I love. I mean, I haven't seen, what's her name, Melissa. I forget.
I have no idea. You're gonna have to.
Melissa Barrera or something like that. I think.
She's the lead, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
like
she's Sam. Yeah. She's Sam. I've only ever seen her in these Scream movies, and she was in that Lin-Manuel Miranda movie in the Heights or something like that.
Oh, okay.
It was like that musical. It was good. I liked it, and I'm not a big fan of musicals, so I don't know her from much. But I mean, I've liked her in the few things I've seen her in. But, I mean, I really like Jenna Ortega and everything I've seen her in. I think she's fantastic. She's been a set for Scream 2022. But, again, I don't think anything was their fault in that movie.
Sidebar, those two actors, the disparity in their height is so hilarious to me.
For sure.
Like, there were moments where I was like, can they not figure out a way to block these two together? Because, like, sometimes it almost looked like Ortega was like a child. Because, I mean, it was like it was cropping her off almost at her nose sometimes because the other character is in it, and it's just they can't quite get them in the same shot
Bring
together.
out the apple box.
You know, yeah, it's kind of like just cheat it a little bit. You know, we know she's shorter; it's not a big deal.
Yeah, and it's Melissa Barrera in the Heights. Yeah, I was right. Yeah, I like both. Honestly, I like all the characters. I guess they're legacy characters now. All the ones that carried over from 22. I really liked in this movie. I thought Chad was fucking great in this movie.
See, but now you're going to help me with the character names, but they're both niece and nephews of Randy.
Yeah.
So they are all legacy characters, basically, because they're all bloodline related to the original.
For sure. Chad and Mindy.
Right.
I really like both of them in this. I really like... Chad was a forgettable character in the first one. And I thought he was, he's killed off who cares, whatever. Well, then he ends up surviving, but...
They want him to be the new Dewey. I mean, that's basically who he is.
Apparently.
Yeah. Because, I mean, he has a similar trajectory in terms of just... In both movies he's in, it seems like he was definitely dead, and he's fine at the end.
Especially in this one.
Yeah.
If you're going to have all your characters survive and nobody significant die, don't massacre them. At least he was stabbed so many times, and I get it. As someone who will maintain forever that Dewey is still alive, I get it if you're going to keep him alive. But at the very least, again, we're getting spoilers. Don't just have him talking and chilling and making out with Tara. No, he should probably go to the hospital as quickly as possible.
I mean, it's just funny because now in these Scream movies, I mean, you have to have your head taken off. I mean, you will survive any injury unless they explicitly say you are dead. I mean, like, I never once thought he was dead, even though he got stabbed. I mean, if you counted it out, he probably got stabbed 12 times because he was stabbed from all angles.
And there was even more stabs that they cut out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, and here's the thing: do you remember Dewey got stabbed in the first film? Mm-hmm. Were there repercussions to that? Was he different in the second film?
Yeah, a little bit.
He was damaged from that. Probably psychologically, but also just physically, he was different. This character Chad, you would never know that he was stabbed. I mean,
he got a scratch on the back.
I mean, did he even have scarring? Because I feel like we saw him without his shirt, and he was fine.
Yeah.
So I just don't. like if they're going to do stuff like that, I feel like there should be some kind of repercussions. You know what I mean? But instead, he's a totally fine, well-adjusted dude. You know, it's another symptom of like modern characters, like their flaws are very internal. It's almost like my biggest flaw is this, like I don't have enough self-confidence in how great I am. Right. Seems to be like the biggest flaw that any of these characters have, and it's just kind of like give us something to latch on to as humans, you know. But again, young people love these characters, so
I really liked him in this movie, to be honest.
He was fine.
I thought he was really funny and fun and charismatic.
Did Gail Weathers need to be in this movie at
Absolutely
all?
not.
No, it's pointless.
Absolutely.
You know,
why was she in this movie?
It was funny when they go to her apartment and we meet a boyfriend. I was just like, oh, he's gonna get killed here, huh?
Yeah.
Like, and he did, sure enough, instantly. And by the way,
doesn't even get a name.
No, and she doesn't give a shit either. She moves on very quickly from this person that she knows. What's funny is if a character isn't important in these movies, any injury will kill them.
Yeah. One
stab will kill any secondary character, but like the main characters can get stabbed again a dozen times and not even have to go to the hospital. Apparently, they're just totally fine. They can just carry out a conversation. Like, you know, he's probably going to be like a world-class athlete in the next movie without any kind of problems.
He's literally got stabbed like 12 times, and they stop her to let. I mean, they literally let her stop them to like kiss, like make out with him and shit. Be like, hey, fucker, he should probably go to the hospital. He's on his. He's getting ready to die. We should probably get him there and save him. So I guess it's really not fair because if they had killed Gail, I would have been pissed off. And the fact that they didn't, but set it up like they were, pisses me off. So I really can't complain on that because they were doomed either way. The only way they could have solved it, not having Gail in this movie. She wasn't needed.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Another reason I like this movie a little bit more than the previous one is because they're doing their best to kind of like separate and make their own thing a little bit more. So I appreciate that on some level. And I do think there is a chance, though, that they're saving a lot of ammunition for a third new sequel.
Maybe.
And that's why they're not killing anyone. That's why maybe who we wanted to be the villain in this movie will maybe be saved for the next one, because there's a lot of fan theories about a certain person still being out there in the ether. So I think there's a chance that they're saving all that for a final, if you will, I'm doing quotations, like a final Scream movie, and they'll like pull out all the stops, bring back people, kill significant characters, etc., in service of doing like one final big push, you know, that will make this little trilogy, you know, kind of memorable.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
Because they've done nothing with the first two to make it anything. The ladder death was cool.
The what now?
The ladder death.
Oh yeah, no, that was a good suspicion. I think the only problem is that the person in peril we barely knew.
What was her name? Nobody knows. Idea. Nobody cares.
But she really loved Randy's niece,
Mindy. Yes,
they were really in love.
They were so in love. It was such a.
They said it.
Yeah,
that's how we knew.
Yes.
I don't know if they actually said that, by the way, but
no, I'm pretty sure they did.
That's what I'm saying. It's like we didn't get any real connection with these characters, but they just explicitly say why they're important, and that's enough apparently nowadays.
And I gotta complain. This is easily the worst, even though I think 2022 is overall the worst movie. This was fun. It was entertaining.
Sure.
There was no weight to it. And it had a lot of goofy stuff in it, but it was entertaining nonetheless. Yeah. But this has to easily be the worst, I don't even know what you would call it, like monologue of what we're in. You know, Randy always had his, like we're in a horror movie, we're in a sequel, we're in a trilogy.
Yeah.
This has to easily be the worst one of, we're in a franchise? We've been in a franchise since Scream 2. What the fuck are you talking about?
Well, in their universe, too, Stab has been a franchise for their entire lives.
What, 8 or 9 now?
Right.
That's your big thing, is we're in a franchise.
It's a little weak.
That's what you got. I get it that they had less than a year to write this, but that's all you got is we're in a franchise.
But then they're kind of, in fairness, they're kind of playing around with the idea that IP is king right now.
I mean, I
Well,
guess
it has been for a long
but
time.
I feel like they did that with 2022.
Yeah.
That was
The Randy-esque rant was not as substantial this time from
No.
his niece character.
Yeah.
And
And
I
I
thought
thought-
Mandy, by the way.
Mindy.
Okay.
I thought she did fine with it in 2022, but this one was like
Stretching it. Yeah.
Do you have anything else to say about this one?
I was just going to say, I feel like it's apparent that the only reason we did this list is so we could rag on these two movies.
Yep.
You want to power through the other ones?
No, I feel like we can get into it.
Okay.
Because I think we're definitely going to have some stuff to talk about, at least with a couple of them. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Also, there's no possible way, because if you look at it, again, spoiler, with the killers, it's Dermot Mulroney and his two kids who are the siblings and father of Richie from 2022.
Right.
And Gail's boyfriend in this is a huge, big dude who apparently gets literally thrown through furniture by a college-age girl who's not big. It doesn't
Right.
look like she's muscle-bound.
I mean,
Dermot Mulroney couldn't have done it.
right.
And her character did it.
They had that problem in the last film as
they
well,
did.
where
They
it was
did.
like a
But that was
5'2" girl.
that was pretty
you know.
egregious.
Right.
When he comes flying through, and then you get the reveal of it was her, and you're like, how?
They could have at least made a joke, and it's like do some kind of thing about how she's a college student and she's like on all kinds of like amphetamines,
Something.
just some kind of aside where it's like that would even make it where she's a little more threatening at the end, because that was another problem. Like, I never once thought these three characters were a threat
Not
to
in the
our
slightest.
heroes in the big showdown at the end.
Not once.
I mean,
Not once.
nobody, even though there were a lot of people on the chopping block, I never felt scared for any of them,
When there are some deaths in here, they're pretty gnarly deaths. I'll say that about it. Ghostface was fucking awesome in this movie. He was vicious as hell.
Did you like the vintage mask gag?
Nope, that was
I
stupid.
didn't really care about that.
It was
either.
it was dumb and pointless.
I heard
It's
a lot of people slobbing the knob of that, and I didn't really.
It's just more of, hey, here's the Easter egg, so you ignore the fact that we didn't really put out a good movie. It's like, no.
Well, that's what I thought. The entire first one, or
Yeah.
2022 one, it's literally just like the wiki page of
Yeah.
the Easter eggs. That's like the only thing people care about,
Yeah.
Although I'm sure those people would argue that they love the new characters. God bless them.
Again,
Moving on.
I did like the characters this time. I didn't so
Right.
much in 22. I actually did like them in this one.
Well,
And again, Mindy gets nearly killed, and then she can just run out of the hospital like an hour later.
Right.
And again, whatever. This is the movie they wanted to make. God bless Radio Silence. I can't wait till they do they got that new Universal movie they're doing.
Oh, okay.
With Melissa Barrera in it. I don't know what it's going to be about, but I'll be psyched to watch it and do that stuff.
I also liked Ready or Not, so yeah.
Do that stuff. No more screams.
Except for what would they call it?
Well, I mean, honestly, with them working on, unless they put it off for a few years, with Radio Silence working on this new monster movie that they're doing and stuff, and Jenna Ortega being she's in the new Beetlejuice, and she's got Wednesday coming up after that. Who knows when they'll get to making another one unless they just go in a completely different direction with other people.
Maybe that's why they struck it while it was hot with the second one, and maybe
Yeah,
the
I think
third one
so.
they'll take a couple years,
Maybe.
2 or 3 years, maybe.
Kind of do like with the original Scream 1 through 3. Just like Scream 1, Scream 2, then a year or two, and then Scream 3 came out.
Well, I mean, what's your next choice?
Oh,
Where are we going?
I forgot that this was a ranking and not just
I was
going
gonna
to
say, for me, I'll go. Speaking of Scream 3, that's my next choice. Is Scream 3.
I will say this. This was the hardest choice for me. This is what, our fourth one?
Yeah.
This was the toughest choice for me, was what I was going to put right here. And I hate to say it, but I put Scream 3.
Oh, so we're still on the same.
We're
Okay.
on the same wavelength. For the longest, this would not be my fourth choice, but of Wes's movies, it is just not the best. It's still really good. I love this movie. I love Scream 3, but it's just not one of the best.
I feel like these new sequels made me appreciate Scream 3 a little bit more. Because to me, it's the rogue sequel of the 4 originals.
We'll get to. I'll get to that point. That's with me too, but not with Scream 3. I always appreciated Scream 3. I've always loved it, but I do share that sentiment with another one. But yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people complain about the whole like deep fake voice changer box thing. That never bothered me. I always liked it. I thought it was cool. I thought it was an interesting take. Not realistic, but I thought it was an interesting take. I liked it. There are some. It gets. This is kind of that issue of when you run into something like the scary movie films, where this becomes more of a comedy than a horror movie, and becomes almost too parody in some instances that lessen it. But I still think it has this and the lack of Kevin Williamson of it all maybe hurts it. Because Aaron Kruger wrote this one, but he also wrote the Ring remake, so it's no slight on him. I know they were under a lot of time constraints and the Weinsteins of it all and all that. So, but overall, I think this is a really, really funny, enjoyable movie, and it has actually, oddly enough, given that it's one of a more comedic take, has some of the freakiest moments for me. Like, I don't know what it is, but like the Sydney dream sequence with her mom, creeps me, still creeps me out to this day. I don't know, something about her like eerie voice, and like the blood on the bloody fingers on the windows. It just always freaks me out. I don't know.
But I strongly agree with all that you said, and I like that it's kind of set in Hollywood, and they play around with that a little bit. I will say, I feel like the problem this movie has, Scream 3, that is kind of what these new films have going for them, in that I remember very vividly seeing that in the theater. Yeah. And even though it was what I thought the final installment, I never had any real fear for any of the main 3 characters, like Dewey and Gail and Sydney. Yeah. In that film, I never really thought they were on the chopping block. There was something about it, even though it was the last installment, I just felt like they were safe, and that kind of ended up being the case. Like, only new characters were killed, except for the opening scene, obviously. Yeah, with Cotton, which I thought was a fantastic. Yeah, it was opening. Cool. I liked that idea. So I think that's a big flaw. Is just that, and that was a personal thing. I understand, but like for me, I just never felt like any of the characters I cared about were really in danger for some reason. Right.
No, I agree with you. I never once, were in fear of them not making it, but it never bothered me. I was fine with it.
Well, it's an entertaining movie, and it has a lot to say about filmmaking circa that time, and
for sure,
it's kind of playing around with a little bit of the idea you're touching on, where Scream is already being imitated so heavily at that point that they kind of have to it's the first time that they really have to kind of reinvent what this franchise means a little bit. Yeah. So they had to kind of play around with the alchemy a little bit, make it a little funnier, and but yeah, and I do love that it's only one killer. I like that they kind of played around with that idea a little bit at the end. I thought that was fun. And it was actually a somewhat imposing man for once. That's kind of never been the case for the most part. It's always been, kind of svelte, slender men / women, so it was kind of cool that it was a dude that actually looks like he could be a pretty imposing threat to most people. Scott Foley, is that his name? Something like that?
Yes.
I mean, I did zero research for this. This is all on memory.
I'm pretty sure that's it. Yeah.
He's a pretty recognizable guy. I think he's gone on to do quite a bit since then. Any other parting thoughts?
I would say, what did you think about the side characters? It has some of the most interesting side characters to me. I really love Parker Posey in this. She's so fucking hilarious in this movie. And her teaming up with Gail is just... It's great.
It's a really fun idea to have like their on-screen counterparts kind of interacting with them and stuff.
I just wish I wish Dewey had interacted with his more.
It would have been cool.
Yeah,
if they leaned into it a little bit more.
For
Maybe
sure.
they thought it was too much to have every single person do it. But
I
I agree.
basically just team up with your doppelganger. Right. Yeah, that's true. But them two together were really fun, and it has some of the most quotable moments of this franchise come from her, just like some of the lines she delivers. It's just, she was so fucking good in it. I liked her a lot. It's just like a great like late 90s, early 2000s slasher. And actually was shot, you may already know this, the mansion that they shoot at in the end sequence is the same building as the school in Halloween H2O.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's
pretty close together, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple scenes that, like, there's one scene where she's in this hallway, and if you can just imagine it with these, like, blowing, like, sheets, it's like, oh, yeah, that is the same hallway in H2O. But most of it you can't tell, but that one, I remember, I think it was on the commentary, Wes is talking about it or something like that.
And I do like that they played around with the idea of it being a trilogy, which again duped me into thinking that it was probably the last one.
And with something as tragic as losing Randy, I did like how they brought him back a little bit, without taking away the weight of it. Oh no, never mind, he's alive. It was a cool concept, and kind of still leans into the like meta-ness of it. Of course, Randy would make his own little film just to...
It sucks that they didn't think, or I mean, I guess they could still do it. Like, in reality, Randy probably would have, if he was that thorough, he probably would have done one for like several installments going forward.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That it would have been kind
sure.
of funny. But I guess the impact of what you're talking about would be lost if it was literally every episode.
Yeah, for sure.
But I was just thinking that it would be funny if they like de-aged him and, made it all staticky and, and all that stuff. But yeah, I guess that's kind of a one and done type moment. What, you want to move on to the next choice?
Yeah, sure. What's your number? What are we at? 3?
I think we're going to sync up until the last bit here.
We'll see here. I don't know.
Scream 4 is my next
goddamn,
one.
me too.
Yeah. So Scream 4, I'll just say I went into Scream 4 arms crossed, just going like, why did they do this? Like, why are we getting a Scream 4?
Yeah.
And seeing the young cast and, just thinking this is going to be a passing of the torch and I don't want to see that. And they did a great job, I think, of introducing new characters that I actually enjoyed seeing on screen. So much so that I think the goodwill for one of them drafted her back into the latest Scream, the Kirby character.
Yeah, even though she was dead. But,
for sure. I mean, but, suspension of disbelief, I guess. We'll go for it. I think it's a little bit more of a...
You would think that the sheriff knew that there was someone else that survived, but whatever.
I don't know much about the FBI standards, but to me it was a stretch that Kirby could like be in the FBI. I thought that was pushing it. She just seems very, maybe not the best recruit, but I don't know much about it. So going back to Scream 4, I did like the new characters to include the villains and the smaller characters. They did great commentary on the internet being full swing in 2011. I think that's when it came out. And kind of proto before social media had completely taken over. There was kind of hints of it. The whole webcam phenomenon, streaming, all these elements. They did a great job for a director that was probably well into his 70s at that point. I mean, I thought it says a lot that Wes Craven was still savvy enough to manage all that stuff and make it fun. Because of the nature of the sequel, I thought everybody was on the chopping block. Like, I was like, I could see anyone getting killed because they're trying to kind of, I thought introduce new characters, you know what I mean? So I thought anybody was on the table. So the whole time I was like, Dewey's probably going to get it. If this person's, all these moments. But yeah, that's part 4 edges out part 3 for me, just because the level of threat felt a little more substantial in this,
for sure,
that movie to me. And I also liked how the characters grew from part 3 to part 4. There was significant a jump of time, and they allowed all the characters to become real adults, which I thought was kind of fun, seeing where all those characters would be, approaching middle age, in some cases in middle age.
Right.
Versus what they do in the new Screams, where it's like they're just shells of themselves for the most part.
For sure.
But anyway, it was just a great last hurrah for Wes Craven. I feel like it's kind of his last substantial movie. Like after that, I think he did did he do My Soul to Take? Or was that before? I've kind of forgotten now. Because that's a rough movie. That's a pretty bad one.
Pretty rough. I can't remember
Scream
if it's before.
4 might be last.
It may be.
For
I'm
his,
trying to remember when
theatrical...
it came out. I don't know.
But anyway, I think it's kind of a nice swan song for the franchise / Wes Craven as a horror director. And it's just a shame to me that they decided to continue it after it.
Sorry, I was the exact opposite. I went into this movie arms wide open,
I can't wait.
Like Creed. I was like, yes, Scream is back, baby. And then I did not like it the first time I saw it. I didn't like it in subsequent viewings. I was not a big fan of this movie for a long time. Again, this is what I was saying, what you said with Scream 3. One, the most recent Screams really helps me appreciate this movie more.
Sure.
Two, just the passage of time. Because what I think this movie done, I wasn't ready for this movie. I think some people were like you were ready. I didn't get this movie when I first watched it. I was not prepared for it. And I think what this does is just shows, I mean, it's not just Wes, but I think a big part of it is Wes. And this shows how just ahead of his time that Wes always was. You look at Nightmare on Elm Street and New Nightmare and Scream, and just like how on the nose he is about what's coming in the future. I mean, he helped to reinvent, at the very least, the slasher subgenre time and time again when it was getting tired. And he did it with this. This movie is a requel. He did what wasn't being done yet and did it more successful than probably any requel, I'd say, at this point in time.
I feel like it's worth noting that, and he did it in an era when everything was going in the realm of remakes.
Straight remakes.
The aughts were all about,
and that's,
every classic thing getting redone. Yeah.
And that's why they talk about remakes in this, because the word requel wasn't around yet. But that's what this movie is. This movie's a requel.
Yeah.
And I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't expect what that would be or what it could be.
Sure.
And so he left me the 70s. How old was Wes?
Well into his 70s.
Yeah. The 70-something-year-old man left the 20-something-year-old man, or however old I was at that time, behind. Because I wasn't prepared for it. And looking back on it now, you can see, you look at any requel nowadays, and they parody Scream 4.
Right.
In the structure of it. And I think there's still stuff I don't like about this. As much as I love Anthony Anderson and Adam Brody, their characters were in this movie.
Pretty throwaway.
Yeah. And I still hate the fuck Bruce Willis line. Like I can't, I just can never like it. I want to, but I do agree with you. There was real weight in this movie that one of them was going to die, that we were going to lose one of them. It gets pretty intense at points in this movie. I feel like it's not the same Ghostface we're used to.
Yeah.
While still having the same bones of the Ghostface we're used to. This is a much more impactful Ghostface than before, but it still has the same kind of undertones of what Ghostface was. And I think what that did was help create that semblance that one of our leads, or one of our legacy characters, is not going to make it from this movie.
I mean, the idea that they were playing around with this concept of, Emma Roberts' character, she wants to be the new star. Right. So that's her whole motive, is like she wants to take over for Sydney and be like the new survivor that gets all these movies made about her and stuff like that.
She's got Marsha syndrome.
Yeah. I thought it was such a cool commentary on where we were at that point, with so many people wanting to be you know, the stars of like reality TV shows and,
especially at that time,
you know,
just a
American
couple-
Idol, like things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's right before social media became common for everybody. I mean, it was around for sure, but like,
yeah,
I
it was
feel
pretty
like,
prominent, but
yeah.
like grandparents having it and stuff hadn't quite
Right.
hit yet,
Or
but it
like
was coming.
someone becoming a huge star off of TikTok, obviously
Making
wasn't,
money
you know,
off
right.
off of its
a little
social
more
media.
rare, you know,
Yeah.
but it was a precursor to it, and it's like you're
For sure.
saying. I mean, they're just on the cutting edge without realizing it. In fairness,
Yeah, I don't know
but
if Wes knew all what he
Right.
was doing, but he just had a sense for things,
bit of
man.
a bit of a prophet. I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty incredible. So yeah, I just feel like people that it doesn't work for them, I kind of understand it. It's a belated sequel. They introduce a lot of new characters, stuff like that, but
And
it
I-
worked for me.
I
mean,
admittedly didn't love a lot of the new characters. I mean, they're all just fodder to be killed off anyway, so I don't think you necessarily have to.
Right.
Even I know everybody loves Kirby. I don't love Kirby as a character.
yeah.
Again, like there was a scene in 2023, the new Scream, that kind of harkens to the kind of vibe that I just don't like when Kirby and Mindy interact, and they had the whole kind of face off of cross arms, like, "Oh, you think you're a horror fan? Well, I'll decide that." You know, that type of
Right,
thing,
right.
that very gatekeepy type of thing, and it doesn't fit with my experience as a horror fan. Because if I see someone who's a horror fan, I'm like, "Oh, you're a horror fan? What movies do you love? I love them too."
Well,
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, but at the
I mean,
same
I'm
time,
sure you like. I know a lot of people love Kirby, but
Well, I'm fine with
and
Kirby.
I didn't hate her, but it just some of the stuff gave me that vibe, especially in the newest one. It wasn't as prominent in the Scream 4, but
well,
I still felt like it was with her and Charlie.
I just feel like, you know, with the Kirby and Mindy, it's Mindy? I keep questioning that character's name.
Yes, Mindy.
Their scene, I feel like that's kind of a commentary on how mainstream all this stuff has gotten.
Maybe.
Because now horror and superhero stuff, I mean, I grew up in an era where you were closeted for liking that stuff.
You were not.
And I know young people
admit to being a nerd whatsoever.
I know it's tired, and I know a lot of young people are sick of hearing that, but it's just the truth. I mean, like I don't think they
it is good
understand-
that we're in a better place in that, but yeah, you can't understand what it was like to experience that, where you didn't admit to being a fan of like superheroes or video games and stuff like that. I still remember this kind of little side tangent, but it's funny. I remember this was I think it was middle school. Yeah, it was middle school. I had a buddy. We sat in the back row. I think I was the last seat, second to last seat, something like that. My buddy sat to the left of me, and he was nerdy just like me. We used to talk video games and stuff and superheroes and movies and stuff all the time. There was this girl sat right in front of me. I had such a huge crush on this girl. She was beautiful, just absolutely drop dead gorgeous. And I remember one day we were talking, and we were talking about like PlayStation or Nintendo 64 or something like that. And we're talking about like, oh yeah, the new, I got the new system and it's really awesome. And you know, I don't remember what we were specifically talking about as far as games or whatnot is concerned. But there was this point where her head perked up. This girl I'd never talked to, and I had a huge crush on, and she turned around just with this glow in her eyes and was like, "You have a system?" And I was like, "Are you serious?" It was like Teenage Dirtbag or something, that song. I was just like, yeah, I have. And she's like, "What kind of system?" I was like, I have a PlayStation. And her eyes, the glow went out of it, and her face dropped. She's like, "Oh, I thought you meant a car," and flipped her hair around and turned around. That's what it was like being a nerd back in the day.
And I mean, that's where gatekeeping has changed. There's a new type of person that's gatekeeping.
Right.
You know, and that's probably what that's playing around with. It's more like the gatekeepers now are like the people that are ultra trivia experts. You know what I'm saying? Kind of.
Did you have anything else to say about 4? It was So I love Emma Roberts. I really do. I think she's a fantastic actor. And seeing her beat the ever-loving shit out of herself is one of the best things ever. Also, that was a really cool cold open that I did not appreciate at the time. It's really really wonderful.
And
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah,
and playing with
the
that,
fake outs.
almost playing with the sort of idea of like the metaverse type thing. And just like going to like different versions of this, and here it could be this type of stab or this type of, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So yeah, other than that, yeah, we can move on. What is your next
I think this
one?
is where I'm going to throw you.
You motherfucker.
The original Scream is my number 2.
You know that that is where we differ. I am going to choose Scream 2 as my next one, but I'm not surprised. A lot of people choose I guess we can go ahead and go into it that my number 1 is Scream 1 and yours is Scream 2.
Let's talk about Scream 2 first.
Okay,
I think
yeah,
that'd
yeah.
be easier.
We can do that for sure. A lot of people do see that as the better one from the first one, and I have no qualms with that whatsoever. That movie is fantastic. I still remember seeing that in theaters. It was a challenge to see this movie in theaters for me.
So hot. You mean like...
But no, it was just one of those things of like, you couldn't, like I remember the first time going and I think my parents dropped me off, but I couldn't see it because I wasn't over 18.
No, yeah.
So I had to end up seeing something else. And
Sneaking in.
No, I didn't even sneak in. I was so lame. I didn't think you could do that. But eventually I got to see it. I think, if I remember correctly, my cousin took me and we went and saw it. And there was something so surreal about sitting in a theater with a room full of people as we watched someone be sitting in a theater getting killed in front of a room full of people.
Yeah.
That cold open is one of the most... I mean, if you have to rival Drew Barrymore in Scream 1, that's the way to go with it. You make it meta and you make it something that literally, we always talk about the best scary movies are ones that you could see yourself in. And when you're literally sitting there in it, what they're doing, watching a movie in the theater, it kind of blows your mind. I can't say enough how just sort of revolutionary that type of idea was.
To me, it deserves to be number 1 just because I feel like it's the template for the perfect horror sequel.
It is one of the best horror sequels of all time.
Everything you just described, I feel like was perfectly said, because I mean, it builds on the anticipation that audience had at that moment in '96, I think is when it came out.
The first one?
No, the second one.
No, the second one was 97.
97?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe even 98. But yeah, anyways, sorry to interrupt you.
No, I'm just saying, like, I think it may have been 98. No, it's 97.
I mean, Scream came out in December of 96.
Yeah.
So it would have had to been really late 97 or early 98 when Scream 2 came out.
I don't remember. But regardless, I mean, like, it was such a huge phenomenon, Scream, and the anticipation for a sequel is just like off the charts and so popular. And so, yeah, I mean, you saw it in a slammed theater and you just see yourself on screen, you know, with that opening kill.
Yeah.
Without going way too into spoilers and stuff we've already talked about. I mean, the character deaths in this, it's a good combination of big actors that were recognizable at the time, where you think they're totally off the table, but they totally are on the table, and characters that you already care about that, you know, off it early in the film, which set a tone where you're like, holy shit, anything can happen in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, they fucking killed Buffy in here.
That's what I'm saying.
Good old
yeah.
C.C. Cooper.
Yeah, so I mean, you have like some real back-to-back, you know, 1-2 punches in this movie that I think resonate through the whole thing and make it very heightened.
Yeah.
It was special to me because I'm pretty sure I was going, or all my friends and everything, we were all going off to college that year, and the characters were, so it was kind of like a parallel there. So to me, it's kind of heightened in that sense.
Yeah.
And I mean, the sequence where Dewey gets stabbed, you want to talk about,
man.
Talk about a contrast. You know, you talk about this most recent Scream and the character, the jock character that gets stabbed a bunch of times, Chad.
Yeah.
Like, I just knew he was fine. Like, there was just nothing in me that was like, oh God, I hope he's okay. I just knew it. And when I saw Scream 2, I thought for sure Dewey was killed.
I mean, especially with Randy being taken out earlier.
Yeah, I thought it was so grandiose, and the music and just the way it was staged, that I thought, well, for sure he's dead there. That's crazy, you know, and I felt that.
That goddamn pizza.
And, and then, you know, to rope it back in, when you find out he lived, and like the gag is that he had scar tissue on his back from the original movie, and that's one of the reasons he survived.
Yeah.
You know, it's a great gag and a great just relief to the audience, you know, because I was convinced he was dead, so it was like fun and, you know, cathartic that he survived.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like they lose that in these new movies trying to emulate it. Like, I think they were going for that feeling and just didn't quite get there, because it's like neutered kind of, you know, there's no real threat in these new movies for me.
Also, it helps that since even though he's still alive, he still seems like he's worse for wear. He's like,
for sure. Right. Yeah.
He's not like, hey, let's make out real quick.
Right. He doesn't sit up and start, you know, eating Chinese food like, I'm great, you know.
And it takes a character out of the picture without doing it in vain. Randy's death is significant. It's impactful. It makes sense to the story, and it's absolutely devastatingly out of left field. It's in the middle of the day. You're sideswiped by it like getting clipped by a car while walking down the street. It comes out of nowhere. You think everything is fine. He's going to be safe.
On the same tract, thinking of the newest one, and the girlfriend that gets killed on the ladder, right? Yeah. And you don't give a fuck about her. You don't know anything about her except that she was a quiet person in the room, and she said she loved whoever. Contrast that with Jerry O'Connell in this movie.
Yes.
They give him all kinds of stuff to do in this movie where you learn about this character. You see that he actually has invested some real depth into Sydney.
Yeah.
And
he cares so much, he does a really lame-ass thing like sing, I think I love you in front of a school.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's cheeseball and everything, but you get to know this guy.
Super goofy, yeah. He's very charming and likable.
Right. And then,
while also perceived and remaining a threat.
Exactly.
With Billy, you just never know.
And that's the thing, is like, you know, she basically inadvertently betrays him, you know, and causes his death because of that. That's real. That's like clever screenwriting. That's like something that the audience has invested themselves into. And contrast that with the lazy screenwriting of like, there's a girl sitting on the couch. She says she loves her. She's dead in the next scene. Yeah. Like, who gives a fuck? Like I don't care that character died. You never once thought she might have been the killer or anything. I mean, it was just such a wasted, it's a body count, you know, versus a real character that when they die, it actually matters to the other characters in the story. Did it reverberate at all that she was saying, I love you, or, you know, this is my girlfriend, whatever.
I wasn't convinced once that Mindy cared about her.
I mean, like, it's like virtually like she didn't even exist afterwards.
Yeah, for sure.
You know? For sure. Whereas, I'm pretty sure in the sequels, Sydney's even wearing like a locket that he gave her.
Yeah, she's still got his letters on, at least in Scream 3.
Yeah, I mean, at least it reverberates a little bit, you know? I mean, good luck trying that. I mean, maybe they've covered their bases and they have some bullshit thing.
Yeah, maybe
they can throw in the next movie. This is so we, you know, feel something. But anyway, I'm sorry. I should be singing the praises of part 2 instead of just trashing the new one.
It's fair because they're the one that related it to Scream 2 in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's hard not to compare and contrast with those two.
Why'd you pick the first one as the top number one?
I mean, as much as I can sit here and talk about how just the surreal, beautiful experience it was seeing Scream 2 in a theater with a group full of like-minded horror fans, I can't compare it to how much seeing the first Scream for the first time absolutely devastated me. And just warped my mind into the horror fanatic that I am today. I always maintain that you're born a horror fan, but you sometimes have to find it. And Scream is how I found it. I was not a fan of horror movies before then. I was a fan of like lesser kids stuff like Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark, stuff like that. But I wasn't a fan of horror films until I still distinctly remember it. We're coming home from church one day, and I don't know what it was. My dad and mom are up front talking, me and my sister in the back. And I just overhear my dad telling my mom about this movie where these two guys are sitting there stabbing each other and screaming and ranting and raving. And I was like, what is he talking about? And we got home and I watched Scream, I think that night, because I just had to see it after he talked about it. And being so absolutely petrified that I had to sleep in my sister's bed with her that night. And I couldn't sleep. I just stared out of the doorway into the hallway, expecting the ghost face to just run across the hallway. It took hours for me to fall asleep. I don't think I've ever been that petrified watching a horror movie, except for maybe Wizard of Oz. And there's just nothing more impactful than what Wes and Kevin Williamson and the cast and crew did with that movie. As much as I love Scream 2, just everything that movie set up into motion was something that spanning, as much as I don't like it, spanning sequels even to this day.
Sure.
Is just, it's unreal. And I caught that at the right time to have it be easily probably in my top 5 horror movies of all time.
And it's what I guess I should acknowledge here, that I love the Scream movies. I have a lot of fun with them, but I'm not sure that I would put them in my top tier, you know what I mean, like franchises and stuff like that. It's a franchise I really appreciate and love, but as far as my go-to movies, I probably wouldn't include them, just because I'm a big Universal Monsters guy and all that stuff.
Because you're a son of a bitch.
Well, I'm just old.
No. It's totally fair. It's not everybody. I think there are plenty of just casual fans of that. But like you were saying, I was like 12, 13 at the time when I first watched it. I caught it at the right time.
For sure.
And it became something so important. I think that's why I'm so frustrated with like the newer ones, is because even though, like I talked about, I didn't love Scream 4 the first time, I wasn't as down on it as I am the 2 most recent ones. And I think a lot of that is because of Wes. And just that those 4 films mean so much to me that it heightens the fact of how much I dislike the newer ones. Because that franchise does mean so much to me. So
fair. I'm really passionate about how much I hate the new ones. And so,
You definitely are. I think we both are. I think a lot of it I've come to grip because, man, the last year after Scream 22 came out, like I spent a lot of time just seething about about that movie, and try to grow from it and understand it. Watched a lot of reviews of it, and just there's nothing more cathartic and frustrating than listening to people talk about it and praise it so much, and you're just like, how the fuck? What about this? And what about that? What do you mean that was good? That's not fucking good.
Right.
Until you're just kind of talked yourself out of it to where you're just like, whatever. You know what I mean?
The one thing I wanted to mention too about the original that it's kind of easy to overlook is how it reintroduced the concept of the whodunit in the slasher film.
Yes.
Because that kind of dropped away. It was a big thing, like the Prowler and the original Friday the 13th and Sleepaway Camp. They kind of had these whodunit threads that were really important to the alchemy of those movies, and they reintroduced it with this one, and then also kind of subverted it by having 2 characters with totally different motives that just kind of intertwined.
Yes.
And that's something that's kind of easy to lose that thread, just because that becomes a standard of this franchise going forward.
For sure.
But it's the alchemy of the old slasher movies, big time. going back to Psycho, really, if you think about it, it's a little bit of a whodunit as well.
Definitely.
In some levels. But, so yeah, I mean, it's a really important movie, obviously. And they did the great thing, talking about, speaking of Psycho, spoiler, of advertising it as though Drew Barrymore is going to be pretty much the lead actor.
Yes. Yeah.
And then sure enough, she buys it in the first 15 minutes of the movie. It's like the biggest marquee death. And at that time, I mean, she was the it girl too. I mean, she was hot.
Yeah.
Really big deal at the time. So that was also a thing for that audience of that era, was a really big deal, that reintroducing that concept of just, like you were saying kind of earlier, like no one is safe, like that we killed the biggest star in the movie, arguably, right off the bat. So you have no clue going forward. Even though you think so-and-so is a main character or whatever, you don't know, who's getting it offed. Which, again, something they've lost in the fire a little bit with the new one.
You don't say. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. And
you know what they need to do, spoiler, for the future? Jenna Ortega should just die in the opening scene of the next one.
that would be
Go
pretty
full circle.
strong,
'Cause
especially
she
with as
survived
big
the
as
first
her
one.
career is.
Right.
Just be like, come on, just do a day. We'll do this, and then you can be done with it.
Have her get killed, and then I think they should go full tilt and do that idea of like, is her sister possibly the killer, and have us question it through the movie.
Yeah.
Like, for real, is she actually the killer? Because give us a little bit more of that, you know what I mean? And if they're going to do it, if they're going to reintroduce Matthew Lillard, that's the big rumor, is that...
That's the only thing that can make me praise this new trilogy or whatever.
Have him potentially... Is he able to, like, bring her to the other side? You know what I mean? He's the original partner of her dad. I feel like that's the only thing they can do that can really kind of up the ante. But then they're going back to the well. They're going back all the way to the beginning. Do they want to do that? Like, I don't know. I mean...
Well, it's interesting. I really think Stu Macher is kind of underrated in how nefarious he was. He's so bombastic and over the top that it's kind of lost on people. Billy's the one that's angry and menacing, and Lillard plays it so like goofy and fun that it's kind of lost on people. Just the simple fact that Billy's doing this for revenge. Stu's doing this nothing but for the fun of it.
Right.
Like he's like pretty fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's villainous. Billy, I think, could kill everybody and be done with killing. Stu clearly has a taste of something for it. Like there's more to him than just the bumbling kind of guy who is maybe a little bit in love with Billy. That there's much more to it, that he enjoys what he's doing. He's not doing it for revenge. He's doing it for fun.
On that note,
I have my ideas for some new Scream movies. Spyglass, call me.
you don't want to reveal it on air.
Never. Never.
All right. Well, that's our ranking for the Scream films.
Yes.
How would you rank them? Strongly disagree with us?
Yeah. Please let us know why we're wrong about the new Scream movies.
Well, that's got it for this time. Thank you for joining us. Adam, thank you for participating.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Absolutely. Until next time.
Y'all come back now, you hear?
Oh.
Because you're a son of a bitch.
Well, I'm just old.